introduction. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, my name is Carlton Hassel. I'm a community development specialist based in Richmond from PAO, the Program Administration Census Office. I've been with the department for about 7 months. It's been a really excellent time being here, and I'm going to talk to you all about getting on the contract. Next slide, please. So an overview of some of the things I'm going to talk about. We're going to talk about the contract negotiation record and the meeting that's associated with that document. We're going to overview the pre-contract activities that you'll need to complete to get under contract. We'll talk about the pre-contract review that you'll have with your grant manager, your community development specialist, and your financial lead from your locality. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the signing process once all those activities have been completed. Next slide, please. So the contract negotiation record. This meeting is going to be scheduled with your proposed project management team, including your community spark plugs if possible, after you've received your award letter. And so we're going to build this document by pulling the information straight from the narrative and the information that you had within your application. So the more thorough that you make your application during the planning grant process and everything before that will make this meeting go a lot easier. During the meeting, we're going to give an overview of everything that you had put and confirm all of the details. We're also going to discuss any changes, if there are, to the scope and activities, review the personnel, and review the timeline of the project. We'll also confirm any leverage funds that have been associated with the project and make sure that they've been committed. We'll also determine which activities will be paid from which pot of money, depending on which leverage sources that you have. We're also going to confirm that the appropriate personnel from the grantee has access to CAM so that those documents can be uploaded. A recent change from this past year, we normally gave 90 days to complete all the pre-contract activities, but now we're giving our grantees 120 days to complete those pre-contract activities. Following the contract negotiation record, we're going to send out a follow-up letter that will have all the details of everything we've talked about and some action items moving forward. And we'll also schedule our facilitated management session, which will be based on all the things that we talked about in the contract negotiation meeting, and we'll also negotiation record meeting, and we'll also review the project management plan at that time. Next slide, please. Pre-contract activities. Sit tight. There are a good amount of them for our frequent flyers. You know how long this could be. And for some of our new partners, we'll go through all the details. And this will be a general overview. For specific information, feel free to ask questions towards the end of the presentation and to work with your community development specialists if you have questions specific to your project. Next slide, please. So for the pre-authorization of cost, the draft letter for this can be found within Appendix 1 from the Grant Management Manual. Typically, this is not to exceed 15% of the budget. Within your pre-authorization, you can get authorization for different activities that you would need to get under contract, such as creating your pay for performance budget, your project budget, drafting your project management plan, adopting your anti-displacement and doing your Section 504, completing your environmental review process. If there are any specific workshops that were identified that you would need to attend or for the members of your group to attend, and any program designs depending on the type of project that you're conducting. You can get approval for that through this process. Next slide, please. So the environmental review process, this is by far one of the more lengthier tasks. So we definitely recommend getting a head start and using that time during your planning grant and after the contract negotiation record, really getting a head start on this. There are generally three main steps that are taken for this. Generally, we're going to determine the category of the CDGB project and what type of environmental review process you're going to need to take. So whether your project is exempt, categorically excluded, whether you need to conduct an environmental assessment, and whether that environmental assessment will lead to some type of environmental impact statement. After we've determined the appropriate category for your project, you're going to make aware and send out the information to appropriate partner state and federal agencies that will be reviewing and providing comment on those activities in your project. This could be anywhere from DEQ, Department of Historical Resources, the EPA, and also your designated tribal organizations and governments that are applicable to the location of your project. If for some reason there was an impact found, you'll work with your project management team and your community development specialists in the department for mitigation measures that may be needed. A good example of this is if the Department of Historic Resources requires some type of programmatic agreement because they've determined that your project is in a historically significant area or there is some historical significance. This would just allow them to review the write-ups for the structures that the locality will be altering. So after you've gone through that process, typically you'll publish your finding of no significant impact or your combined notice of intent to release the request of funds, and you'll enter your comment period. This will allow you to inform the public and allow them to provide any comments, and also the department as well. After that comment period has ended and everything is being satisfied, you would submit your request for release of funds certification, which will indicate to DHCD that the environmental review process has been completed. Keep in mind, and I definitely recommend that you all attend our more in-depth trainings about the environmental review process that will be conducted from my colleague, Kelly Chair Pitch. Next slide, please. So the project budget. I think it's very important as you're setting up your project budget for you to distinguish the differences between your administrative costs and your project costs. There are certain administrative type costs that are actually more appropriate to be put into your project budget. Some of the things would include your rehabilitation specialist salary if you're doing housing rehabilitation and require that, your design and construction management services, your legal fee for the review of the construction contract, legal fees for recording deeds, engineering fees for water line designs, or other pre-approved costs related to relocation. For your pay for performance budget, all CDBG agreements require a performance-based contract. This means that the administrative section of your project budget is going to be based on activities that are completed and milestones that you achieve rather than time and materials of the project that are incurred. These payment and thresholds and things like that will be negotiated between DHC and the grantee after we've completed the project management plan, which will allow us to outline those specific tasks and how much we'll pay for the completion of each of those tasks. If you go to the grant management manual, we typically have a breakdown. For getting under contract, we pay 15%. For successfully awarding the contract, that's typically 20 to 35%. For construction activities is between 20 to 35%. Achievement of benefits as denoted within the contract, 25%. And project closeout and administrative closeout is about 5%. It's also important to keep in mind that some specialists will break this down even further with you, depending on different contract monitoring activities and fair housing activities. I think it's also important that you note that there are different administrative cost limits and cost limits for the various aspects of your project. So that can be anywhere if you're doing facade designs, There's also an engineering fee table and that you can use based on your construction costs. And there are different cost limits associated with inspection and demolition and other activities. So just make sure that you work closely with your specialist to determine those items so that you can be successful. Next slide, please. Our federal requirements. More detailed information can be found in our grant management manual between Appendix 4 and 7, but I'm just going to review some of these in broad detail. For our Section 3, your business and employment plan, this is requiring to any feasible extent that you're providing different job opportunities, employment, and contracting that's paid for by HUD through the CDBG process directly to your low-income persons who reside within your project area. If you are a county, that would typically be determined as your project area. But if your project is in like a city, that would also include the city and the surrounding county of that project area. For your Section 504, HUD requires that you have policies and procedures through adoption of the Section 504 requirements, that you don't have any discrimination based on handicap within your program and activities. You also, if your locality employs 15 or more persons, we would need to designate a Section 504 coordinator who would ensure compliance to these requirements. You would also develop a grievance procedure that would allow you to incorporate some type of due process and allow you to have prompt resolution of any complaints that may come up during the project. And you also need to post this notice publicly within your administration offices. For regardless of what type of project you have, you must publish a notice for minority and female owned businesses. And this is giving a notice within a circulation, newspaper circulation that is inquiring and encouraging bids and participation from your minority and female owned businesses. Please note that all of these different publications that I've talked to you about and different requirements will need to be published within a news circulation and formally adopted by the local governing body. Next slide, please. Anti-displacement. So when adopting this particular document, we want to ensure that our grantees are minimizing any project-related displacements and the hardships that can be imposed from those activities, even if you're not necessarily doing housing activities. We also want to know if there are going to be any type of direct displacements, whether it's from property acquisition or demolition or any type of conversion, whether it's involuntary, voluntary, that we have a plan in place so that these folks within the community can be fairly compensated and provided with relocation assistance. For our one-to-one rule that we use, if there are any LMI dwelling units that are demolished or converted to any other use besides other LMI dwellings, that they are replaced with new LMI dwellings. Keep in mind that if you have some type of units that are already available within the community, then that can be used as well. This also requires formal adoption. And if you do have any planned displacement, you would need to prepare and have an approved anti-displacement plan as well. Next slide. Fair housing activities. So for every fiscal year, we require at least one fair housing activity to be completed. There are different types of activities that you can present. So for educational, if you want to create some type of displays or have a booth set up or provide some ads, if you want to provide written documentation as well, whether it's brochures, some type of fact sheets. If you're doing housing rehabilitation or providing benefits for first-time home buyers, you can provide guides. but this is also a great opportunity for you to be creative. You know your residents better than we do, and so you can create different things that are tailored towards your population, such as fairs or youth programs, or even maybe a counseling hotline or chats. But this is a great time for you to tailor those activities towards your population. Next slide, please. Program documents and agreements. So different programs documents will be required depending on what type of project that you have. Generally, all the projects are going to require a project management plan. If your project is a community service facility, we're going to need to see a staff and operations plans that's going to tell us how you plan to staff the project and how you plan on operating the facility. If there's going to be any blight removal, we need to see your blight identification plan and your remediation plan. If there's any planned program income, we're going to need to see a plan for that will detail how you plan on using that income. If you're doing a housing project, we need to see your housing program design. For those who are doing BDR projects and doing facade programs, we would need to see your program design for that. If you're doing any type of micro enterprise loans, typically for businesses that are 5 or few employees, we'll need to see your micro enterprise program design. And if you have any water projects or you're connecting folks to water and sewer improvements as part of your project, we would just need to see your user agreements for that for the residents. And if you're doing any type of like economic development where you're funding an industry that's either locating there or it's expanding, we would need to see the industry agreement as well. Next slide, please. Our favorite topic, audits and financial reports. These are very important that you submit these on time into CAMS. Please work with your community development specialist to make sure that you're updated. If there are any outstanding items, this will typically be brought up during the contract negotiation record as well. So for your annual activity and beneficiary report, this is going to show us in detail the benefits and accomplishments that you've achieved during the past fiscal year. For your section 3, your annual summary report, it's intended to measure how you have complied with section 3. For your annual contract and subcontract activity report, this will provide us information on your contracts and your subcontracts that were awarded during the previous fiscal year that exceed $10,000. And a final report will also be needed to be submitted within your final closeout reports. For your financial audit, every fiscal year, all of our grantees need to upload their financial statements directly to DHCD. This is required that you submit it yearly, particularly within 9 months after the end of your fiscal year or 30 days after it's been accepted, whichever comes first. Keep in mind, there are some other reports that may be required, so just work with your community development specialists, and those will also be detailed during your contract negotiation record meeting. It could be like your annual inactive program income report or some other things that are specific to your project. Next slide, please. Certification of signatures. So the certification of signatures in your address form, it's required so that we can verify signatures on the contracts and any contract sensitive correspondence. This is required that you have at least 2 authorized personnel who can submit remittances into CAMS, but you can have more than 2. But it's important to note that you cannot have the same persons who are signing the checks without prior approval from our fiscal analyst. The specific form that you would need to use is detailed within Appendix 27. And it's important that every single person that needs to notarize or sign as is specifically detailed within that appendix is used. Next slide, please. Procurement activities. So just to preface everything related to procurement, there should be no agreements or services that are signed before the CDBG agreement is executed, unless you get written approval by us. Please do not procure any construction materials, construction contracts, any of that. At this point, we would be creating draft documents. So please work with your community development specialists and do not execute any agreements that will be using CDBG dollars before you have that signed agreement. Through the procurement process, we're just trying to get a clear picture of all the different procurement activities that are required. So for grant management services, if you choose to use, some of our quasi-government entities, such as the Planning District Commission that's in your region, you don't need to competitively procure them. But if you're using any type of other grant manager or another service provider, then we would need to see those procurement documents. For your architects and rehab specialists and some of your inspection services, it's important to note that there are cost limits associated with that. So you need to work with your community development specialists, like we said earlier, when you're developing your budget, so that you know the cost limits that are associated with those particular items. This could also include any type of additional engineering fees, or if you're doing projects that are requiring some type of construction material testing. All of those things have regulations that can be worked out with community development specialists, but it's detailed within our grant management manual. Next slide, please. So at this point of the process, you would already have had 2 public hearings within your community. And so we just need confirmation of both of those hearings. So for the first hearing, we're going to need to see that you provided information about the funds. You've given a list of range of activities. You described some of your other CDBG funds and projects that you've had, and that you also provide your minutes and attendee lists. And for your second meeting, we would like to see a more detailed description of the activities, if there are any displacement concerns or other concerns from the members of your community, and to provide minutes and attendee lists as well. Both of these meetings will require a notice that's published 7 days before the meeting that shows that you've reached out to the community and made them aware that it's happening. And if there is any requests for folks who are non-English speakers, or for folks that are handicaps, that you made accessibility available to those individuals. Next slide, please. Leverage funds. So if there are any funds that use grantee that your locality is providing, or there are any other funding sources, we need to see written proof that it has been committed, or that was designated by your chief executive officer. We need to see some type of written proof. You can't just say, oh, the money's coming. Same thing if you're using any other funding sources, if you're doing type of USDA or other HUD dollars, or even other DHCD programs. If you have investors that are providing income into the community, or if you're doing any type of programs such as facade programs, we would need to see written commitments for the participants that they're going to provide that match and participate in the program. Next slide, please. Passing unresolved items throughout the process from the start of the contract negotiation record meeting. We're going to ask and work with you if there are any projects or past projects that you've done, or any audits, or anything that is outstanding. You'll work with the DHCD to make sure that those items are finished and completed, or that if there needs to be any resolution or amendments where you're getting contract extensions, we'll detail all of those items and work with you so that those things can be resolved, so that you can get under contract with your current CDBG project. Next slide, please. For the pre-contract review, once you are pretty much substantially complete, your community development specialist is going to reach out to you and schedule a pre-contract review. At this point, you would have already received quite a few checklists that will allow you to detail every nook and cranny of the pre-contract activities that needs to be done. Typically, this meeting is with your grant manager and your financial specialist, because there is a financial checklist that needs to be reviewed, which will have details about CAFR and your payment procedures. But it's a pretty long meeting, so we ask that typically we try to get your financial specialist in there first so that they can do the financial checklist, and then the other checklists can be ironed out. And from here, if there are any other future action items or last minute items, we can iron out those details so that it can be completed. And then let you know everything that you need to do so that you can get approval from us and move into the contract signing phase. Next slide, please. Then your contract signing. So after you've completed all the documents, everything has been uploaded to CAMS. Your CD specialist has spent hours reviewing it and working with you to get everything completed. You'll receive a notification that we're ready to sign the contract. Your CD specialist is going to build the contract and documents and circulate that through our internal department so that the proper approvals can be received. And then after it's completed, it'll be sent directly to your designated signatory, and then it'll be signed, and then you can move forward with your activities and executing contracts and procurement and things of that nature. Next slide. So that was a very broad overview of the different activities that you need to complete. At this time, it looks like we have 20 minutes for questions. And I think that some were also put in the chat. So Blair, if you could go through, or, folks want to come off mute. Also, that's my information too. If we don't get to it today, or if I don't have the answer, feel free to send it to me and I will get back to you or connect you with the right person.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlton. We did have a question that came in through the Q&A section. And this was, are the activities that Carlton is describing applicable to planning grant contracts?
So there's actually a different presentation for the planning grants. Some of the things you would probably do, like if you're starting your environmental review, but everything that I covered is specific to the pre-contract phase, but some of the activities you would have started within your planning grant phase as well.
Wonderful. And Elizabeth Eby added a little bit more in the chat. Anything else from anyone? Feel free to raise your hand if you'd prefer to come off mute and not type it in the chat. You must have done a great job because we don't have any questions.
Oh, we just have some great folks who are in there who are seasoned and really doing a great job. Really appreciate for the opportunity to present in front of you all. Some of the folks that I've worked with that are on this call, really appreciate working with you as well. And again, my contact information, I'll put it in the chat as well. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.
Oh, we do have one last question from Janet. It says that parts of the grant management manual are out of date. Is a new one forthcoming?
I believe so, but that is not in my forte on when it's coming out. I know that there are some updates to the engineering fee schedule and some other things. But Amanda, you could also speak to it as well.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, we know it's out of date. We are working to correct it and get it all brought back up to current. As you go through the pre-contract requirements for your large SIGs, community improvement grants, the actual construction projects, if there are things that need to be adjusted, those will be brought to your attention by the community development specialists. Yeah, we know, we're working on it. Sorry.
Awesome. And Sherry noted that on June 8th of 2022, we'll be doing an in-depth training on pre-contract activities. And she asked anyone to put in the chat what they would like us to explore or do a deeper dive of during that session. And then we have someone who's raised their hand.
Denise.
Feel free to come off mute.
Yes, it's me. I'm very new with this, so I just have a quick question. Concerning your fair housing activities, can you explain a little bit of what I need to do? I've got to do one of those.
Could you talk a little bit more about your project?
We have the CBD, the block, COVID block, and it's for small businesses.
Okay, awesome.
Community.
And feel free if Joanne or if anybody else wants to step in, but every fiscal year you would do some type of fair housing activity. So whether you create like a brochure that you can hand out or some type of fact sheet, you would just need to create some type of material that falls in line with promoting fair housing. And then you would submit that in camps. Your community development specialist will review it. And then there's also a specific form that you would fill out that would detail that information as well.
And we have a list of fair housing activities that you can use, a sample list in our grant management manual. And I think that starts on page 37 of the manual. But also, as Sherry noted, on April 12th, we'll be offering a fair housing training session to do a deeper dive into that.
Okay,
This is Stuart Burrell, one of the community development specialists. You can get a lot of the brochures and flyers in multiple languages from the State Fair Housing Office. If you just Google Virginia Fair Housing Office, and Denise, I will work with you on that as your community development specialist. But yeah, there's a lot of great brochures in multiple languages, and you can print front and back, English and Spanish, etc.
This is Joanne. Good morning again. April is Fair Housing Month, and so that's the month that there are often lots of conferences and workshops going on around the state. And so your attendance there, along with your chief executive officer, would certainly be an eligible and great fair housing activity. So it's not just the grant manager alone, but you have to have someone in upper management, or you have to take a local realtor, or you have to educate someone in your community about fair housing. So as Blair said, check our manual. We've got great suggestions in there, and I'm sure between that and working with Stuart, you'll find something that'll be easy to accomplish.
Thank you all so much.
In the QA room, there is a question about, do these activities apply to planning grant contracts?
Yeah, we answered that already.
Yeah, these activities are for a construction grant, but many of them dovetail planning grant pre-contract activities as well. But planning is a lot different than construction grants. And so what Carlton has talked about today is pre-contract activities in preparation for your construction grant or the construction phase.
Thank you for clarifying, Joanne. Do we have any other questions?
Earlene did put a good reminder in there that the fair housing activity, you can't do the same one every year. You can't go to a workshop every year and think that's it. You got to do something different each year so we can make sure you're, spreading around the creativity. Thanks, Earlene.
All righty. I think we're through. I haven't seen any new questions pop up. Carlton, thank you so much. Sherry, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, thank you. It is now 11:26. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll be back at 11:31. Thanks, everyone.